And good evening, everybody. Happy draft day. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're live everywhere. And it is now draft night. It is 8 o'clock. All of the speculation, planning, and everything is come to fruition. Here we are. Nick, how excited are you for this draft? And, what are some of the things you're most looking forward to?
Man, just getting through the top 10 here. I mean, who knows how it's going to be? It's going to be an unbelievable draft today. A lot of speculation that's going to come to a close, thank goodness, after a while. And just seeing how the quarterbacks fall and how this top 10 plays out, it's going to be a fun one. And honestly, my favorite day of the draft is day 2. So just seeing who's left on the board after today's over with is going to be a lot of fun.
It's so weird. And I want to say thank you to a bunch of people who have come in early. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat. This is just my Twitter page real quick, the link. So if you happen to be on Twitter, I put the link in there that says, hey, come join us. And, share it around a little bit. See if we can get more people to come in here. I want to say thank you to all of you that have come in and joined us, because I know you've got different options to come in and watch. There's lots of different venues to watch this draft, and we appreciate you taking the time to spend it with us. So especially when they're coming in like this guy, Michael Ranquillo. We're starting off the show right here. Michael Ranquillo says, good evening, Scott and Nick. It's draft day. Michael comes in with a $50 super chat, and I don't exaggerate when I say it helps keep the lights on and helps keep my forehead nice and shiny and helps us do more content that we can do things like this with y'all, for you. And I do mean with, because we do these live because we really do enjoy the interaction and whatnot. Now, I want to say hello to some folks that have come in early, today. We've said hello to Michael. Michael, again, I can't tell you how much that means to us. Gatorade Gaming coming in. Happy draft day and good luck to all the Falcons fans. Rob Bucksbaum saying, good evening, gentlemen. Draft is here. Aki Dragon says they're live. Brandon Swanks, here we go. Tucson Phil, let's see how many surprises we get. Flying Anger Pig. Man, now that is a screen name right there. Flying Anger Pig. I am totally jealous of that one. Joe Cannon coming in on Facebook says, what's going on, fellas? And I bet if I look up here, Joe has hit the like button, and he has, definitely. Thank you. So it's about that time. I'm actually getting set up to start my podcast with my good friend dedicated to the draft tonight. Well, congratulations, man. Let's know what we can do for help. Rob says, Scott with the glasses and Nick with no hat. It looks very different. I'm nearsighted. So, when we do these up close, I can see everything on the screen just fine. But I set up my TV over here to have the draft on. And I can't read the scroll. So I went the glasses. They're good glasses, so hopefully you won't get too big a glare or anything. But with the glasses tonight, it's an evening. The eyes get a little tired. This is our third podcast for the day, Nick. It's gonna be a long day, a great day. Joseph Tranny comes in. He says, incoming Richardson to Raiders, so we get to fight with him and Herbert and Mahomes for 10 plus years. Broncos fan coming in for Joseph and saying the incoming Richardson to Raiders could be interesting. Now, Nick, there is a lot of talk, period. I could just stop there. I don't even have to say comma about. Yeah. There's a lot of talk, period. There's some back and forth of 2 quarterbacks could fall all the way into the 20s. Now it looks like they could go 1, 2, 3, 4, which is kind of what we said could happen all along with the way the draft is set up with the other players and the teams at the top who could use quarterbacks and teams trading back. It could go 1, 2, 3, 4. What is your prediction for the night right off with these quarterbacks? What do you think? Will they break precedent here? Could it be a new dawn? Could they go 1, 2, 3, 4?
I still think Will Anderson's going to work his way in there somewhere. I think somebody's going to maybe trade up for 3, Will Anderson, maybe Jalen Carter as well. So I don't think it's going to be quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, 4. But I do think that we're going to have 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 before the top 10 is over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it's never happened before. We've had, I think, 1, 2, 3 times happen. I think we might have that again even today. But we'll see what happens here with the selections. Obviously, the Colts going for quarterback. We'll see what happens with the Cardinals. And breaking news about the Arizona Cardinals. Saw Adam Schefter tweet this about 10 minutes ago. The Eagles and the Cardinals have settled a tampering investigation involving the hiring of Jonathan Gannon as Arizona's new head coach. Eagles are trading pick 94 in this draft and a 2024 fifth to the Cardinals for pick 66 in order to settle this tampering allegation. So weird thing there for that one. I think it's interesting to follow. The Cardinals already kind of messing up in this draft today.
Oh, goodness. The Cardinals, but hey, listen, it's worth it if you get the right guy. You know, if you get the right guy, it's not too much to give up. We've had this discussion with the Denver Broncos about giving up a first rounder to get Sean Payton. There is, I mean, I could go through, I went and looked through the Atlanta Falcons first round picks through the last 50 years. It's bleak. I mean, it's bleak. There's like 1 in 8 of those guys turns out to be more than an average starter. It's bleak. To get the right head coach is worth a first round pick without a doubt. So it's definitely worth, if you get the right guy, whatever they gave up for tampering. I tell my kids all the time, I say, you can do whatever you want to, as long as you're willing to live with the consequences. Yeah, they were willing to live with the consequences on this one. So what are some of the latest that you've heard? I know there's been some talk about some teams trading up into the 3 spot. The Arizona Cardinals moving down and getting some spots there. So who are some teams that could possibly be on the move before we get started? And we shouldn't have that long to find out, to be honest with you, because we should get a number 3 pick here in about the next 20 minutes or so.
You hope so. I think the first big thing you want to say is DraftKings has incredible positive odds towards CJ Stroud being the quarterback taken number 2 overall, which is just a crazy change in what we've been hearing leading up to the draft. And a lot of the speculation is that the ownership of the Houston Texans has stepped in and stepped over the front office, the personnel people, and the coaching staff as well, who are more interested in taking Will Anderson instead of a quarterback here. But now it sounds like the ownership's coming in. I mean, it's their team, it's their money, and sounds like they might be taking CJ Stroud there. But I'll believe it when I see it. But that's just the latest rumblings there. So CJ Stroud, I know you've been a big fan of him. We'll see how it plays out. But that's the latest there.
And we've kind of always thought, you know, it wasn't until the last couple of weeks where it was anything but quarterback. You know, we've had it written in marker since the last game of the season, maybe even before that, because Houston was in the number 1 spot for so long, that it was going to be quarterback. We're going to have to take quarterback, going to have to take quarterback, going to have to take quarterback. Then there comes some draft smoke that comes out, and then enough of it that we actually start believing it. I can believe it. Again, it's strange, Nick. I'm going into this draft. I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Like I've been studying 6 weeks for a college final. I never studied 6 weeks for a college final. Don't get me wrong. But I'm nervous. Like I'm supposed to know the answers, and I don't. All this time we put into the draft, and we don't know much beyond who could be the number 1 overall pick, which we think will be Bryce Young. After that, it's chaos, especially if we start getting some trades happening. But it doesn't have to be, but CJ Stroud to the Houston Texans makes sense. And if not, okay, maybe they fell in love with another quarterback, but take your quarterback now. There's no guarantee you're going to get another shot. And if you need to spin him off in a year or so because you went 7-10, but you know, or whatever, maybe you can trade him off in a year. But I think you've got to take your quarterback right now. I firmly believe that, unless Daniel Jeremiah had them trading up to the 3 spot. They're picking 2 or 3, then do what you want. You can get your top position player and your quarterback.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit in this, Scott. And typically you and I, march to the same drum. But on this spot, I think this is an absolutely dreadful Texans roster that is devoid of talent almost all across the board. And if you are drafting a quarterback into this situation, how long is it until you have a roster that is good enough to even evaluate him, let alone him play to his top ability? I think you are setting yourself up to waste 2 of maybe even 3 of the cost-controlled years before you have to pay that quarterback incredible money, assuming they hit. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation there. The other caveat that I want to add is that you still have Trey Lance out there. Obviously, the Houston Texans' entire offensive coaching staff, where did they come from? That's right. They came from San Francisco, who traded up to select Trey Lance. And also Mac Jones is out there, somebody that apparently the 49ers liked a lot as well. So I don't think they have to go quarterback at 2, especially if they don't evaluate that guy. Typically, if you're up there and you like a guy, swing. But the caveat is you have to like the guy. And if you don't, then you don't force it.
Well, of course. Reaching is how you get in trouble. We say that all the time. The Panthers are on the clock, so we have started. Now, let's use the Atlanta Falcons as an example, because they went through this same thing 2 years ago. Okay? Would you be better off right now for the Atlanta Falcons with Justin Fields or Kyle Pitts? Because I was a big proponent of taking your quarterback then. Justin Fields was available at 4, and this is what we're talking about. That roster wasn't in any place to compete. Wasn't going to be in any place to compete for 3 years. Was you better off getting your quarterback then or not? Again, I think it boiled down to they just didn't like Justin Fields. And if that's the case, so be it. But you're taking a pretty big risk. Okay, yeah, we'll get our quarterback in the 3rd round. No, you won't. That doesn't happen. And it might. I mean, it might. Of course, I'm speaking in absolutes here, and there are no absolutes. Desmond Ridder could turn out to be really good, but the odds of hitting on your franchise quarterback in the 3rd round are pretty slim, slim. And it is so expensive to try and get up and move up into the draft. So would you be better off if you're the Atlanta Falcons right now with Justin Fields or Kyle Pitts? I'd still probably argue Justin Fields, but I understand where your point on this one. If you're not sure on the quarterback, don't miss, because the phrase I've heard and I've repeated a zillion times, it's not the guys you miss that hurt you. It's the guys you take and aren't any good. Those are the ones that kill you. If you keep stacking good players, you'll be all right in the long run. You'll be all right in the long run.
And no matter who they take at quarterback this year, I think it's still pretty likely that if they take a quarterback, it's still pretty likely the Houston Texans are bad next year, probably picking in the top 10, and they have Cleveland's 1st round pick. So you could play this draft game this year where you set yourself up to be players in 2024. If you choose to go that route, you can draft a couple offensive linemen. You can draft a couple defensive linemen, help D'Amico Ryan. So I don't think they have to go that route. I think it was it the 2017 draft where everybody's saying, Cleveland has to take a quarterback. Well, they take Myles Garrett and they're picking number 1 again very next year. They missed the evaluation on 2018, taking Baker Mayfield instead of Jackson and Allen. But I don't think that no matter what Houston takes this season, they're probably picking pretty high again. So, I mean, even if you take an incredible quarterback, the Jags 2 years ago took Trevor Lawrence, who's one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in 20 years. And they picked number 1 again the very next year. So if you don't love one of these guys with where Houston is at right now, I don't think the urgency should be as high from a roster building perspective. But if you love the guy, you take him. It's that simple. If you love them, you take him.
And the Trevor Lawrence one isn't really that one's a little tougher to do because Trevor Lawrence was an easy number 1. That was a no-doubter.
Yeah.
That was a no-doubter. But,
for sure.
The Jaguars are in a good position right now, and they've got their quarterback.
Yeah.
So they're prepared to take the next step because they've got their quarterback, which is basically what people are saying the Falcons can't do. They can't take the next step. They've done all these great things. They've really improved their defense. Doesn't matter. Bryce Young's standing up. Looks like he's getting about ready to go. While we're doing that, we're waiting on the Panthers pick. Let's say hello to some folks in the chat real quick. Steve Kennedy says, I'm here, guys. Well, welcome in. Welcome in, Mr. Kennedy. Kevin Mapp says, what's up? What's up to you as well? Brandon Swank, if running back ends up number 8, at number 8, need to trade down for sure. I'm with you on this one. I've said it a zillion times. It's so funny. I posted my mock draft with a trade down and Bijan Robinson taking him at 13, and people are losing their minds or saying, this is why you've got to do it. It's a very polarizing player. Mm-hmm. And the same arguments that are used why you take Bijan Robinson are the exact same arguments I use why you don't take Bijan Robinson. Well, the way this offense is set up, it's perfect. The Falcons have such an elite running game, and they're run heavy, and Arthur Smith really wants to run the ball. And they ran the ball well with a middling talent like Tyler Algier. I'm like, funny. It's the exact same argument I use why you don't need to use an 8 on Bijan Robinson. But we'll see. I can certainly understand it, but trade back, man, trade back.
What's going to happen to us?
If someone sneaks in and takes before him, that means you've got another guy that you can get in the teams that's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Kathy coming in over in Germany. It's got to be late over there. Good evening.
Yes,
or
it is.
Either way, a happy draft day from Germany. Guten Morgen's maybe over there. I don't know what it is. A good morning yet? I don't know what time it is in Germany, but appreciate you coming in and saying hello.
Yep. Hope you're doing well, Kathy. Glad to hear from you, and thanks for stopping by. Jesse Hilborn says, good evening, everyone. We'll move over to MAH later. So will we. We'll move over there later, too, after the top 10. But wanted to start the night with the smartest guys in the business. Well, thanks. I'm not great at taking a compliment. I like them, but I'm not great at reacting to them. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate you. JJ says, happy draft day, Nick and Scott. I'm excited to spend this time with my favorite draft nerds. I resemble that remark. Thank you, sir. Dave Glassman with the hearts. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you being here. And Roderick Cook also coming in late night from over in the UK as well. Alan says, I'm here. Well, so are we, Alan. We're glad you are. Leon Mapstone, glad you found us tonight, Leon. Mike S. over on YouTube says, what's up, Nick Scott, Broncos country. Let's see. Mike S. says, Young going to the Panthers. Yeah, we'll be pretty surprised if he's not. He looks pretty relaxed on camera there, and the cameras are focused on him like they already know something. That'd never happen, would it? Not in the TV business. Michael Lewinsky saying, hi, guys. Tell me if I'm getting that close, because it looks like it's a Lawitsky, like Lawitsky, Lahutisky, but I would think that's Michael Lewinsky. So if I'm screwing that up, let me know. I don't mind being corrected. I'd rather do that than be wrong constantly. Denver Luke saying, what's up, Scott and Nick? Joe Cannon says, Kevin Mapp, what's up? Yep. Hello. Let me see. Andrew says, I'm gonna time to mute the TV and listen to a much better discussion. Well, we're certainly glad you are here. Let me go through. I think we've got just about everybody that's come in. Kathy has joined us as well. Oh, hey, fellas. Happy draft day to you. Paul is in as well. So, all right. We've hit most everybody that's come in. Rusty Harness looks like a new name. He says Fontenot and Company can still get who they want without paying top 10 money. And a trade down would do that. It would absolutely do that. I like the idea. Depending on who it is, the pick is in for the Carolina Panthers. But depending on who it is, there's a few guys that I would take at 8 without trading down. And we'll see how these first 7 picks go, because you're going to need probably 3 quarterbacks to go in the top 7 for the Falcons to get, just mathematically, one of the 5 guys I really, really like that are position players. Otherwise, I would want to be coming down. It doesn't look like we're too far behind. I knew we were going to be a little bit behind on the stream. As I'm watching this via stream while we're live streaming, y'all will get it before I will, because you're watching it on a broadcast network or something, and I'm streaming it down here. So we'll say hello.
Appreciate Vic Vac coming in here from India. Good to see you, Vac. I just saw a pan of the crowd there in Kansas City. Kansas City with the 31st pick in this draft, and it looks like it's freaking Woodstock there. The NFL draft the NFL is a monster, but what an amazing event the NFL draft has become as well. And I just want to shout out to everybody joining us here today, partaking in this, because it's such an awesome event. So much fun. Everybody gets gifts today, except maybe the Broncos and the Rams, but it's a lot of fun. Every team's getting better. I see some Bronco jerseys right there, so it's awesome, man. And
the Dolphins get reminded that they got their pick stripped from them. So appreciate you being here. The pick is in. We'll announce the thing already, though, but I would think it's I'll be absolutely mildly shocked if it's not Bryce Young, but just the way they're running that through, I would think it's got to be Bryce Young.
Yep, and it's Bryce Young. You see him standing up there. Nick Saban's next to him. Pretty awesome. What a year for Bryce Young, and what a good run. I mean, we talked about it a year ago saying, man, why would you take a quarterback in that 2022 class when 2023 has Stroud and Bryce Young up there? And Bryce Young does end up being the first overall pick in this draft.
All right, real quick shout out to my good friend John Garcia. When I was working over at SI wanted to do SI All-American and get into the recruiting game. And I was no longer in a position where I was going to be a national recruiting analyst, but they're like, all right, Scott, who would you hire? And I called up my friend John Garcia. John Garcia made Bryce Young the very first SI #1 player of the year. His second one was Caleb Williams. I think he's gone back to back. I mean, I think it's pretty close, where his first 2 are #1 overall picks. But the Carolina Panthers have just selected Bryce Young as their #1 overall pick to head the Frank Reich regime. Nick, what is your gut reaction?
I think this is a pick made by the general manager and the ownership group more than Frank Reich. And I think Frank Reich, having gone through the purgatory that was Indianapolis with the quarterback situation, said, you know what? I've worked with taller quarterbacks, but this is going to be a much better situation regardless. And what a great situation Bryce Young comes into for the first overall pick. Now, I know this is more of a Falcon-centric scheme today, but you've heard me talk about how much I really like the overall build of this Panthers team. I mean, they're the team that physically beat the Broncos the most last season when they played them, like just bludgeoned them. I guess that Rams Christmas game too. And then also they went into Detroit, who had a really good offensive line last year, and not a great defense, but they went in and bludgeoned them too. So now you got Bryce Young coming in, a team that has really good young makeup on that offensive line. I like a lot of their defensive pieces as well. I'm curious to see what the weaponry is around him. Obviously, they lost DJ Moore in that trade up to get #1, but I think this is probably the best chance for your rookie of the year at this spot for any of the quarterbacks, and probably the quarterback that has the best chance to go to the playoffs this season out of the rookies. I don't even know what the rest of the landing spots are, but probably this is the guy.
Yeah, the Panthers pick again at 39 and 93. So it doesn't look like if they're going to get a wide receiver early that they want to try and pair up, that they might have to do it in the second round at the 39 spot. They don't have multiple picks, and that's not surprising. And they had to give up a lot to move up to that spot.
There has been some talk about the Panthers trying to trade back into the first round, potentially for a playmaker of some sort. I don't know if it's a guarantee that it is a wide receiver. Obviously, tight ends and running backs interesting in this class, but just figured that would be worth throwing out as well. That's what some of the rumors.
You know, we've talked about this for a while, and I've always leaned towards Bryce Young as my QB1 in this class. And after watching CJ Stroud, I said I think CJ Stroud has a legit argument. I just think, and you're worried about his height, and they're showing a graphic right now of 5'10" and 8th, and is the same height as Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. Basically, they're all within of shouting distance of one another. And Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson have both had a lot of success early on in their careers. Bryce Young, to me, he's just so. You talk about the it factor. You can't measure it, but by God, you know it when you see it. And it's like, well, how good could he possibly be? He's playing at Alabama, and they've got all these superstars. Yeah, but it's still what he can do under pressure. He's facing a bunch of NFL guys when he's going up against LSU, when he's going up against Georgia, when he sees Tennessee and he sees Auburn every once in a while has some pretty good players. When he's going up against the Gators, they've got good defensive players out there, and he's under pressure a lot. And what he does off script is special. He's just a point guard playing quarterback, but he can still step back and make all the throws. I'm a big fan of Bryce Young, and I think they made the right pick.
I think this is the right pick as well. I will say I know the chat doesn't always agree with me on this one, but I'm pretty tantalized by Anthony Richardson as well. He'd probably be my quarterback too, just because the upside, I understand there's risk there, but this is about Bryce Young. You mentioned it, the feel for the pocket and the pressure and the ability to deliver the football out of a variety of arm slots and angles and a muddy base, despite the size, can deliver a very deep catchable ball. And just, he's kind of like, I don't even know how to explain it. He can deliver the football at any moment. He doesn't have to completely reset. It's almost like a fluidity to his game that not a lot of people have. The game is slow motion for him. There's a reason that a lot of people have compared him to a mini Mahomes. But
there's an easy comp for him, and you hate doing it because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yep.
But the way he's able to deliver the ball, to just get it there, by hook or crook, whatever it takes, just get the ball into your playmaker's hands, is very Mahomes-like.
And just coming back a little bit to Bryce Young, I agree with you there. That's one that's been out there. I didn't come up with it, but I think compared to those smaller quarterbacks that you mentioned there, Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, from what I saw from Bryce Young, he delivered a better ball over the middle of the field. Now, granted, even going from the SEC to the NFL is going to be different with the type of athletes and the size that he has, but didn't look like a guy who his spray chart was completely devoid of working the middle of the field that you see with Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. I think he plays almost, because of his height, he almost plays a little bit on his tiptoes in his drop back and in the pocket, just trying to get in extra, just a little bit of height. My biggest concern with these small quarterbacks, seeing over the middle field is a big one, but with specifically a guy like Kyler Murray, how does he hold up? I mean, the NFL season is longer. You're going to be taking hits, and the way he plays, he's going to get hit sometimes. He's going to have to protect himself. And what does that look like, come November, December? Is he still going to be that same quarterback?
He doesn't play quite like Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray probably ran for 5,000 yards in high school. I mean, he was a runner, and it looks like the Texan selection is in. Before that, I want to say thank you to Paul for coming in. It says, thanks, Nick and Scott, for all you do. Denver deserves a draft. And thank you, Paul. You and Michael coming in, helping to keep the lights on. And it makes too much sense. The Houston Texans have taken CJ Stroud. Despite all the smoke that we've seen and heard, this made the most sense all along. I think he's the second best quarterback in this draft. He's a top 10 type of talent. There is a big need there for the Houston Texans. Nick, what is your gut reaction to CJ Stroud going to the Houston Texans?
I'm really curious to see how all the information comes out over these next couple weeks about what happened with the ownership here and between the front office and the coaching staff. But CJ Stroud comes in, and God, he's just been such a great pocket passing quarterback over the last couple years. I think he's a high-end Jared Goff quarterback, and on a rookie contract, that's a pretty darn good quarterback. We saw that with the Rams for a number of years there, where that was really good when you have good infrastructure around him. I think he can be pretty good in this Slowick Kyle Shanahan offense as well, delivering those quick passes, accurate passes. My biggest question with him is, how is he going to be not reading the field, but reading the pocket? At Ohio State, he's played behind some absolutely incredible offensive lines, and he struggled somewhat in games where there has been a little bit more pressure, where he's had, hold on to the ball. Guys aren't getting quite open. And obviously the drop in wide receiver talent is going to be insane. I mean, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and
crazy
Jigba.
To say.
Chris
He's not going
Olave.
to play with as good a wide receivers in the NFL as he had in college, but
not even close.
That about like Joe Burrow too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although Joe Burrow got to bring one of them with, which is pretty nice.
Just right away.
Maybe Marvin Harrison will be there next year.
It's not necessarily the talent. You're playing with NFL guys, but it's the talent discrepancy between the wide receivers and against the defensive backs that they're going against.
Yeah.
And it's not quite that bad, but you had said one of your concerns about him was, he didn't always make a ton of plays, but you know what? He made a lot. He made enough. What was his touchdown interception ratio the last 2 years? 85-12, 44-6 in 2021, and 41-6. And if he wasn't always making the superstar plays, I'll tell you what, he stepped up and had the biggest game of his life against the toughest team that he was going to place and scared the life out of the Georgia Bulldogs, back-to-back national champions. And CJ Stroud, to me, just going back to, we'll forget everything else. This time last year, we're talking, if CJ Stroud is in this draft, he's probably a top 5 pick. We were saying that in 2022. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if the next time I really watch him is against the Georgia Bulldogs in the playoffs, I'm like, oh yeah, I see that. There's a number. I'm watching a number 1 overall is what I'm watching right now with CJ Stroud. So he stepped up when it mattered the most. Can he do that as consistently? My take is 41 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. 85-12, he can step up. And I think the Texans have their guy. I think this pick made the most sense for them. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy for him. I'm looking forward to watching him grow with the Texans.
Yeah, fun player, had a great career at Ohio State, coming in after Justin Fields, a totally different quarterback than Justin Fields. And the next level, obviously, we talked about the talent discrepancy. He could go back there, stand the field, double clutch the ball, read those option routes, and just play a little bit of pitch and catch out there. I want to see him show more what he showed at Georgia. Hopefully continue to add to that wiry frame that he has, and use those legs sometimes. If especially at Houston, protect yourself, because this year is not going to be a championship year for Houston. I would assume. You never know, but he's definitely one that I want to see the playmaking ability continue to grow for him and continue to add some more mass. Hit the weight room. He's still really young as a player and somebody that could be a good quarterback there in Houston. Yeah. 2 quarterbacks now. Let's see if we can get a third one here. Arizona's still on the clock.
Very emotional right now. I'm, again, very happy for him. Just looking forward to watching him play. Now, things start getting really interesting at 3. This got interesting, but was that more of a storyline and a smokescreen? We had Young and Stroud going 1-2, or Young and we had quarterbacks going 1-2 for 6 months, except the last 2 weeks. So this came full circle. Now, if Arizona stays here, we had originally said Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter's kind of, maybe has come off a little bit. Tyree Wilson has come up some. Will they be able to play? I got 2 minutes left on the clock. Will they be able to pull off a trade in the next 2 minutes? And if not, where do they go this direction?
Man, it's going to be really interesting. I think if they keep this pick, they'll probably end up going Will Anderson. But I think a lot of teams were thinking that it was not going to be CJ Stroud there to the Texans. A lot of Levis smoke, a lot of pass rusher smoke there. And now CJ Stroud's off the board. Well, maybe that completely changes the conversation and the deals that Arizona had with teams. So I don't know if the clock resets, if a trade happens here, or they have to work that out. But
no, they have to get it done in the same amount of time. So if they'd have to get a trade announced and then the pick, usually it comes at the same time. They say if you get the card in, it might take them a few minutes for them to read it. But if you get the card in time, they'll announce the trade. And with this pick, who is now on the clock, takes this. So they do the whole thing all at once. Brandon Swank is saying, there we go. They're saying the Texans have made that trade. Daniel Jeremiah predicted this trade in his mock. In his mock, he has the Houston Texans in a projected trade with the Arizona Cardinals, saying it's no secret that Arizona wants to trade out of 3, and it's no secret that Houston is seriously considering an edge rusher. Both teams get what they want. Houston is now a pillar on each side of the ball when they select Will Anderson is who he's got taking him. So,
and it seems that's going to happen.
Got to be announced right now because the time was up.
They traded the pick. Yeah, I think it's going to be Will Anderson. I see it coming in from Schefter and Ian Rappaport that a trade has officially happened. I think I told you about 2 weeks ago or so. I'm like, hey, there's a lot of talk that the Texans might be moving up to number 3 here. I thought it was, from what I told, it was Will Levis, the other quarterback there. But CJ Stroud's the pick. And then, hey, maybe the coaching staff, this is a little bit of a peacekeeping between the front office and the coaching staff. Okay, we got the quarterback the owner wanted. Maybe they want him to. I don't know. Well, it's just speculation. But you're also going to go out there and get Will Anderson. Would you be shocked at all if it was a player that's not Will Anderson?
I'll be surprised. I will. I would lay it like 55% to Will Anderson and 45% the rest of the field. They go Anthony Richardson. Let's double down. We'll make sure we get our quarterback. No, I'm teasing. Tyree Wilson, makes sense here, but I think it's got to be Will Anderson. They had talked heavily about maybe taking him at number 2. They've worked out a deal to get that pick. I say Will Anderson on this one. And again, chaos reigns. 1 and 2 went according to form. We knew that they wanted to come out of the 3 spot. Who's sitting in a pretty good spot right now are the Colts because the Texans aren't going to go back-to-back quarterback. That gives them their chance. They've been heavily linked with Will Levis. So now they got their chance to get Will Levis without having to move up to get him. And that worked out well for the Colts. They may not take him, but I mean, I'm just saying quarterback didn't go 1, 2, 3. So at least you got your 3rd pick instead of your 4th at number 4. And Roger Goodell is stepping up to the podium looking as dapper as ever, and he gets booed lustily. But you know what? You want to pay me, what's he on, about $30 million a year right now? You can boo me too. I don't mind. Shoot.
I would take $1
super chat. You can boo me.
Yeah, exactly. Got it. $1. Just come out and boo me. And it is Will Anderson there, number 3 overall. So great. And I do have the terms of the deal as well. So the Cardinals were desperate to trade down, and it seems like they got a pretty good deal here. Cardinals get pick 12, obviously in the first round, 33 overall. So the second pick in the second round.
First rounder.
Yep, essentially, but not the 5th-year option. But that's 33 is really good. So the second pick in the second round this year because Miami doesn't have a pick. They also get a first-round pick in 2024. Now, is that Houston's pick or Cleveland's pick in the Deshaun Watson trade? Yet to be determined. And also a 3rd in 2024. So Cardinals get 12, 33, a 1st in 2024, and a 3rd in 2024. Texans get 3 overall, which is Will Anderson, and pick 105, which is probably one of the first picks in round 4 or compensatory pick round 3.
Wow, Arizona, congratulations. Congratulations. And to come out of here and for them to get, that's a haul. Mm-hmm. That's a haul that they get in. Houston had those extra picks and, so they had them to spend, but they were burning a hole in their pocket. And if Will Anderson becomes the guy that they think that he can, it's worth it. You get Von Miller out of this, it's worth it. He's worth 2 or 3 first-round picks. But boy, that's a good haul. That is a good haul for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Houston Texans have selected Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson with the number 3 pick. Nick, what is your gut reaction?
Will Anderson is an absolute beast. We talked about it. He had an unbelievable amount of pressures in 2021, the 2021 season. I mean, I remember having a conversation a year ago. Should Will Anderson sit out in 2022 because the only thing he can do is hurt his stock if he gets hurt or something. So here he is. He plays through. He's an absolute Nick Saban raves and gushes about this guy as a leader and a work ethic guy. And when your best player on your field is one of your hardest workers, good things happen. A little bit smaller in terms of your classic 4-3 defensive end, but that doesn't really stop him. I think he's arguably the best run defender in the entire class. He's had plays with so much power. Alabama loved to line him up at the 4-eye, which is kind of almost a 3-4 defensive end spot out there in today's alignment of the NFL. And he was awesome there, run stuffing. He does not have incredible bend at the top. You're not going to see him out there looking like Brian Burns in terms of fluidity or Von Miller, who could run full speed and duck under a table. But with his power that he plays at, I think the guy he compares excellently too is a Khalil Mack, just the shock that he plays with, the power that he plays with, and a super high character, high floor player. Wish he maybe was a little bit bigger, wish he was maybe a little bit more bendy. That would keep him from being, one of the top prospects at the defensive end spot over the last, 10 years. But he's awesome. Great pick. I'm really excited to see what DeMeco Ryans can do with him out there on that defense. Maybe Will Anderson become the next Nick Bosa, who also wasn't the bendiest guy in the world and arguably the best edge rusher in football these days.
It sounds to me like they're looking for their heir apparent to J.J. Watt. And again, I think as Daniel Jeremiah put it, got their pillars on both sides. So they got their quarterback and they got their alpha edge rusher. They spent a lot to do it, but that's okay. Nobody questions how much you spend if you get value, if he turns into the guy you want. The Houston Texans have been, I don't want to say a laughingstock because nobody really paid attention. They haven't been good enough to even be relevant to be laughed at. They're relevant right now, I tell you that much, by getting CJ Stroud and Will Anderson at picks 2 and 3. They've got their quarterback of the future, and they got arguably the best player in the draft, somebody that you had said could go 1 or 2 last year. Oh, man, the Houston Texans are having fun tonight. Evening, Jeremy. He says, happy draft night. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here and in here tonight. So that puts the Colts on the clock.
And not to be contrarian, I think it might be a little bit too much to go up for Will Anderson just because there are no sure things. And we talked about it. This is a trash Texans roster right now. How many rookie cost control players did they just go up to trade for a non-quarterback? Now, if he ends up being a Hall of Fame player, forget about it. But you don't know that right now. And I think that's a massive trade for a non-quarterback. So again, if you love the guy, I get it, but I don't know from my analytics approach there, that's a lot to give up for a non-quarterback in the top 10.
I agree. You heard me say Arizona got a haul. They got a haul. Arizona's coming out of this thing well. Now, what do they do with that is another question.
Yeah.
If you're gonna spend on a player that can wreck an entire game plan, that's a good way to do it. So if it works, I appreciate them being aggressive and going after a guy like this and trying to become relevant again. And Jeremy says the Texans have 23 picks in the next 2 drafts. And part of that was, did they overspend? Maybe, but they had the money, and they had the picks to do it because of the trade they got, because they got such all. Thank you, Cleveland. Thank you, Cleveland Browns, for making sure that we had the ability to overspend on Will Anderson. The Indianapolis Colts pick is in. It's been Will Levis for a while now. Is that going to be the pick? Let me see who Daniel Jeremiah has said. He says Will Levis at number 4. He's 3 for 3 so far. Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young, Houston Texans, CJ Stroud, Houston in a trade. That's the one you got to know something, man. You got to know something if you're going to pick trades and get them right to select Will Anderson at number 4. He's got Will Levis going to the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts are coming out of this well. I really do. They stood tight because they would have been a team that could have traded up with number 3 and swapped. It wouldn't have cost them near as much to go from 3 to 4. They may have been able to pull it off with just a second rounder, but they didn't have to. And they probably, in order to get the 3rd choice at quarterback, they thought they may have to move up to number 3. They don't. And that was as high as they were going to get anyway, because the Texans aren't going to trade with the rival Colts to move down and not get the quarterback that they want. So the Colts selection is in. I still think probably Will Levis here, but it's got to be him or Anthony Richardson, doesn't it?
I think it's got to be one of those 2 quarterbacks, and we'll see who they take here. And they take my guy. They take the one that I think they should have taken here. Not Will Levis. It's Anthony Richardson, the absolutely unit of a quarterback here from the University of Florida. Only a 1-year starter, but one of the most freaky players in the entire draft class. And Shane Steichen gets a quarterback that I think replicates what Jalen Hurts did. Richardson's an absolutely incredible player. The AFC, unfortunately, gets another dynamic athlete at the quarterback position. And really I'm infatuated with what Richardson can be in this level. Again, no guarantees, but the ultimate home run swing here. The Colts sit there at number 4, and the quarterback I think they probably wanted falls to them.
I think this is also backing your new head coach. Shane Steichen has had very good success with all different types of quarterbacks. I've written in the near, not so distant past, the prospect of putting the games, maybe, I don't even think it's a maybe. I think he's the best athlete to ever come out at the quarterback position. And, I say that with respect to Michael Vick. This guy's 5 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier. Michael Vick was faster, but 40 pounds heavier. again, when you start doing comps, you got to go to freak linebackers and big receivers, Kyle Pitts type guys to come up with a comp with him. Shane Steichen has had success with Jalen Hurts, with an old Phillip Rivers. I forgot who else he's worked with that was kind of off the cuff a little bit. Somebody that wasn't quite on this, a different type of quarterback.
Nick Foles.
That I think you're backing your quarterback here, and you don't necessarily have to play him right away because you've got Gardner Minshew to keep the seat warm while you work packages in for Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson doesn't have to come in and start and play and throw 30 times. But I can find packages, short yardage packages for him, different ways to get him involved in this game with RPOs, et cetera, while I am developing him.
Yeah, I mean, I kept saying that Richardson was my guy, even early on. Like, I really wanted him to return for another year to have him in the class with Williams in May just to get more sample size. But the ability to throw, I mean, his vision, he was calling line checks. The game at Tennessee was one of my favorites of him the entire year last year. Obviously, we saw the upside in that week 1 game versus Utah, but he went into a hostile Vols Navy, Vols Army, whatever they call them out there.
It's the Vols Navy because it's right there on the river and all the boats come up. And I'll tell you what, the Vols Navy is one of the coolest things in college sports, in all of sports, honestly.
Well, he went in there and he looked like he was not phased. He was doing line checks with a crazy rabid fan base out there with one of the best Vols teams in like 15 years. And for a first-time pro, I thought it was great. Now, the accuracy is concerning. Is that something that he can improve upon? Maybe. Is he going to have to be a Justin Fields quarterback where the accuracy in terms of the short field area is not great, but because of his running ability and the arm talent, you craft an offense that's a little bit different where his run game is the short pass game? Perhaps. I don't really like the infrastructure on this Colts team overall. The offensive line last year, specifically the tackles, were dreadful. That their wide receivers are not very good. The only move they made this offseason was bringing in Isaiah McKenzie for like vet min. So this is a team that's a ways off right now, but Anthony Richardson is a very unique player, athlete, and because of the tools he has is just unbelievable. And final point about Richardson that I wanted to make is that there's kind of a stereotype about scrambling quarterbacks working their way into sacks and, just being a little bit too aggressive. We kind of see it with Russell Wilson last year. The pressure to sack rate was horrible, trying to do too much. Richardson was actually incredible at avoiding sacks last season. So for being such a deep pocket guy who would play with deep pockets, looking to create explosive plays, to not get sacked, that's a superpower. I mean, he was getting out of those and getting positive yards while still hunting for those big plays. So he's such a unique player. I love him.
When you say that to me and I hear the strength that it takes for him to make sure he's not getting sacked, I think of a cross between Cam Newton and Ben Roethlisberger. As far as Roethlisberger was one of the hardest guys to sack in the world because he had a lightning quick release and he was as strong as an ox. Mm-hmm. Mobile quarterbacks usually get sacked more because they try and extend the plays more and they get more big plays running, but they also get tackled behind the line of scrimmage more because they are more mobile, where a pocket passer will just try and throw it away quicker. So for him to do that, I agree. That is a big deal. Moving on, the Seattle Seahawks are now on the clock. There's about 2.5 minutes left before their pick is due in. This is the Denver Broncos selection at 5. They could still go several different directions. And I think if you aren't looking for a quarterback, you're pretty darn happy that 3 of them have gone so far because that gives you the choice of all but Will Anderson. Who do they take? Who's their guy?
I think that the buzz surrounding Tyree Wilson and the Lisfranc concern is real. I think you're going to see Tyree Wilson slip a little bit here, and the Lisfrancs are nothing to, scoff at. I think Broncos country probably remembers Ryan Clady was on path to be a first ballot Hall of Fame offensive tackle in Denver, and he suffered a Lisfranc injury, and he looked like a barely rosterable player after suffering that injury. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So those Lisfrancs are one of the scarier injuries you can have for a player, and he suffered one. Obviously, he was still great there last year, but I think there's some concern with that Lisfranc. So if it wasn't for that, I'd say Tyree Wilson here, but because it's not, I think this is where Jalen Carter is going to come off the board. He's probably the number 1 player. If you're like rating these guys in Madden, he'd have the highest Madden rating. Looked unbelievable, like the best player on the field in that all-time great Georgia defense last season. Absolutely massive, great swim move, great ability to get in the backfield. I mean, just a man amongst boys playing in the SEC, really was over the last 2 years. So I think it's going to be Jalen Carter here. Obviously, you have the risk with all the questions about does he give it 100% on every play, the racing, some of the maturity stuff out here. But Seattle has a team that, Pete Carroll's dealt with like a miscast of a bunch of guys, and they have a bunch of leaders on that defense as well that can kind of, keep him in line. So I think it's going to end up being Jalen Carter here.
And one of the great player coaches is Pete Carroll. He's always been good at that. I think of situations where I want Jalen Carter to go. Las Vegas Raiders, hell no. I don't want him in Vegas. Seattle, maybe. I think that could be a good spot for him. Atlanta, I think, could actually be a good spot for him when you've got the mentors like David Onyemata and Grady Jarrett. Could it do him some good to get away from home? You couldn't get much more farther away from home than going to the Seattle Seahawks and starting over and growing up a little bit. I think that could be a very good spot for him to go. Could they go cornerback here? If Tyree Wilson scares him off a little bit, is this a spot where one of the corners could go?
I don't think they're going to go cornerback. I think Pete Carroll is hubris with how they have identified cornerbacks late in the draft and walked away with great talent means that they're not going to use a premium pick at the position. Now, I think I can't remember who it was. Somebody that covers the Seahawks said that they were interested last season in Sauce Gardner. So maybe that's the pick, but just the body types you have day 2 in this draft at the cornerback position, I don't see any reason to force it here. I think it's got to be trench oriented. Maybe it's a dark horse here as an offensive lineman, but I think between Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson, if there are any injuries, and guess what? If you didn't want one of those guys, trade back. I don't think I would take a cornerback here if I was the Seahawks, given what I know about how they build teams.
And Michael, are we talking about the Seahawks with Bijan Robinson or Will Levis? Both of those guys would surprise me right now. Now, Seattle wants to get back in later for Will Levis. And I guess that's my next question while we're waiting on Seattle. How far does Will Levis slide?
Excellent question. There's still some quarterback needy teams out there. I know that Tampa Bay has done a bit of work on Will Levis. I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Patriots made a move up there. So might be a shocking team. The one who's kind of been linked a lot to the quarterbacks in the trade-ups, and it's yet to happen, is Tennessee. I remember we did that full first-round mock draft 2 weeks ago, and your buddy who covers the Titans or a big Titans fan said, no way in heck they'll take the quarterback
it was
there.
Greg Arias, who lives in Nashville and has covered the Titans. He said, no way they won't take a quarterback there. Now, they've got the camera on. That looks like Will Levis to me.
Well, that would be pretty darn incredible if it ends up being Will Levis here.
Seahawks.
Or is it just because Will Levis is the last quarterback?
Do you go for, do you try and get your quarterback of the future with a 1-year deal with Geno Smith? They got the camera.
Or did they trade the pick? They traded the pick, maybe.
They did trade the pick. I don't know if they traded the pick or not. I can't hear it, so I'm
they just made a cornerback pick.
There we go.
Wow.
It's Devin Witherspoon. I'm is
shocked.
One of the corners, which isn't a total surprise to me, knowing the defense. You've got a defensive coach in Pete Carroll, and he wants to turn the strength into a superpower with the defense there. They hit with Tariq Woolen last year. Doubling up on the position's not necessarily a bad thing. But the Seattle Seahawks have taken cornerback Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. Nick, what is your gut reaction?
I'm actually pretty shocked that they went with a cornerback here, especially one that's a little bit of a prototype difference than what we've seen with Seattle. They've looked for those height, weight, speed, length monsters out there. And Devin Witherspoon didn't test like an absolute freak, but he plays like an absolute menace out there. Probably one of the more physical players out there. And what I will say is he's going to bring some tenacity and some jawing to that Seattle secondary out there. So he kind of can be a little bit more of an inside-outside player, opposite of Tariq Woolen, who can be your pterodactyl on the boundary. I don't know what this means for Kobe Bryant, who they drafted last year and was the third or fourth round. But Devon Witherspoon, I'm actually pretty shocked to see him come off the board here to the Seahawks, just given what I thought their defense would be. Now, that being said, Pete Carroll last season, they did want to start to shift more to a Vic Fangio-esque defense where it's going to be a little bit more match quarters, some more off coverage going on there versus the cover 3 defense that you saw, very static cover 3 defense with Legion of Boom years. And I think Witherspoon as a off coverage guy, ball skills, tenacity, tackling, makes a lot of sense in that more Vic Fangio style of defense. But great player here, man. That Illinois defense had some incredible players last season, and fun to see Witherspoon come off the board here. Tested fine. You're going for more football player here, though, than the absolute height, weight, speed guy.
I can't believe he's only 185 pounds. When you started showing me clips of these guys, like, hey, check this guy out. I mean, they just put a clip on of his first highlights, and he plays like like Ronnie Lott out there. I mean, he's throwing his body around. He is so physical. He plays like he's 205. And Pete Carroll, again, you talk about the length and all that stuff, but what Pete Carroll's looking for more than anything is the attitude. Of course he's got to have the right physical characteristics as well. Yeah. He wants toughness out of his defense. He'll run through a wall for his players, but he expects the players to do the same for him. So I'm not surprised for this. When we first got started, I said, would you think one of those corners? And because I thought it was a very real possibility. Then they showed Will Levis. I'm like, wait, is it really going to be a quarterback here? I just think when you got Geno Smith on a 1-year deal, that might actually makes more sense to a quarterback. But to me, this means who can help us the most win right now that is also a long-term prospect for us. And their answer here was Devin Witherspoon, because when you've got a head coach in his 70s and a quarterback on a 1-year deal, your window is a little smaller. They want to win now. I think this was a win now pick for them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I am pretty surprised still that it's not Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter. But, Devin Witherspoon, a much safer player, a much higher floor. You're going to get a guy who's going to go out there, compete, and you're going to know where he is too. He's going to be out there talking to the other player, getting under their skin, very physical, very confident player. And I think probably the best corner, probably the best zone corner in this class too. Very physical. I don't know if he's the best pure man cornerback, but good player. Incredible at Illinois. You guys, if you are sicko fans, you want to go back and watch some Devin Witherspoon this season, go back and watch the Iowa versus Illinois game this last year. 10-9 Illinois wins. And that was just a defense slugfest out there. And that was one that's like, oh my God, that Illinois secondary is unbelievable. Who's number one out there? So good pick for them. I'm still a little bit surprised, but cornerbacks are going early. Last season, we're like, oh, but the cornerbacks fall. We saw them fall in the 2021 draft with Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn. But then 2022, you see them go 3-4 with Stingley and Sauce Gardner, obviously. And now you have one coming off 5. Maybe Christian Gonzalez is right behind him.
Okay, who that also means here, if we're looking ahead a little bit, some of the best prospects still available are on the defensive side of the ball. You got Jalen Carter. How big is the question of the foot ankle on Tyree Wilson? That's a little scary. I want to see how far he falls, and then we'll have a pretty good idea what people are thinking there. And you've got Christian Gonzalez. Another trade is coming in. It says that the Detroit Lions at number 6, I would assuming, because it hasn't come in. So the Arizona Cardinals are now back on the clock. So they have taken some of that haul. Now, don't do what the Dolphins did. The Dolphins got a haul from the 49ers and then kind of messed it up by trading too much of it to get back in, and they missed on the guy they wanted anyway, which was Jamar Chase. They got Jalen Waddle. They got a good pick. They really wanted Jamar Chase and still didn't get him. I think he went at pick 5. It went pick 5 right after Pitts. But where is Arizona going with this pick?
I think they're going to go get Paris Johnson Jr., number 1 offensive tackle, in my opinion, in this class. Incredibly long. Had a really good year 2 years ago at right guard. Still has a little bit of work to do, kind of matching his hand technique to his base, but a fluid mover and just incredible length out there. I think this is one of the longer offensive tackle classes we've seen in a while. So I think it's going to end up being Paris Johnson here. DJ Humphries isn't getting any younger, and this is a team that's just not invested in the offensive line enough for a number of years. Is this going to be the long-term blindside blocker for Kyler Murray? Is this a pick more so for the quarterback that comes after Kyler Murray? Not sure. This is also a pick that probably doesn't move the needle incredibly for Arizona this season, but long-term, if the plan is to go, be in line for one of those top quarterbacks in 2024, a great pick.
All right, so we're looking ahead then. You just gave us the Arizona Cardinals. What this means is...
Is it them? I was just a guess if it's going to be Paris Johnson.
But if it is, you got Tyree Wilson, Christian Gonzalez, Jalen Carter still on the board with 2 picks to go with Las Vegas Raiders and Atlanta Falcons. I don't particularly want Jalen Carter for his sake with the Raiders. Him in Vegas, I just don't think that's the best situation for him. Wouldn't mind seeing him with the Bears, actually. That could be a good spot for him at number 9 if the Falcons pass on him. The Falcons are liking the way this is shaping up, I would think. The Falcons are really liking the way this is shaping up because they're going to have their choice of a lot of good players to come, including Bijan Robinson. You look at Daniel Jeremiah's best available players. He still has, and Daniel Jeremiah is pretty plugged in. He's still sitting there. He didn't move Tyree Wilson down from 4. And I would think if he thought that there were some questions there about his foot. He should adjust his rankings. You do it with a graphic change. You do it before it comes in. Because if you're Daniel Jeremiah, you don't want it to be pick 25 and your number 4 player on the board is still sitting there. That makes it doesn't look great. So we'll see. And he should know if it gets to him, Tyree Wilson would be my pick at 8. But we'll see. We got 6 and 7 to go here.
I think that you're going to have a chance at Tyree Wilson here. I think this next pick with Arizona, and God, I was really wrong about Seattle, so who knows? But I think this one will be Paris Johnson Jr., and then 7 will be Christian Gonzalez to the Raiders, but who knows? But God, I hope Jalen Carter doesn't end up in the Raiders for his own sake. But we'll see here. The Cardinals selection is in, and they are taking, there's the giant hat things. We'd look good in those, I bet. And they
I've
take
got it on NFL Network, and I'm streaming it downstairs, which means I'm at least 45 seconds behind. It is Paris Johnson Jr. So good. There's some talk there. You're making your franchise quarterback happy, and you picked up some extra picks in order to do it. It makes sense for them for what they're trying to build, and they didn't have to give up too much to get back into the area. They gave up a high second, but they gave up a second. Nick, what is your gut reaction to Paris Johnson Jr. going to the Arizona Cardinals?
I don't know if you had to trade up to go get him if he's like significantly a better prospect than Peter Skoronski and Broderick Jones to give up a high second-round pick, especially you keep talking about it as well. Those picks in the early second round, this is what you tend to do, clap and rub your hands. But Paris Johnson has been my offensive tackle 1. He has unbelievable length. Last year was his first year playing left tackle for the Ohio State. I don't think he's all the way coordinated right now. It just looks a little bit. Sometimes I think it's because the length a little bit, just kind of loose limbs. I think he'd work on his hand technique a lot, but awesome size, awesome upside. Also, I mean, he's a guy who's a really interesting player as well. I think he knows Mandarin and some Portuguese. He's done a lot of work in like broadcasting as well. Sounds like a really unique player. I think he's started his own foundation and charity already while he was at Ohio State. So sounds like an incredible dude as well. $1 million smile there. I'm happy to see Paris Johnson come off the board here. Seems like a great kid and a unique talent as well.
Yeah, 6'6.5", 313 with a 7'1" wingspan on him, 36-inch arms. So big kid, moves well, has played some inside, played some outside, has some good versatility. Arizona, I think, has done well with this pick. And it's not just about keeping your franchise quarterback happy. That's not a bad thing to do either. But again, for a long time, the second highest paid player in the NFL was your left tackle, number 1 being the quarterback. And then number 3 would be the guy trying to get to the quarterback with your edge players. So making sure that you're especially when you've got an undersized quarterback like him and you get him a personal protector, I think is a good move for Arizona. I think they have done well today. There was talk about them taking Paris Johnson Jr. at 3, which would have been a reach. This may have been a little bit of a reach, but they got paid for it. They got paid to move down from 3 to 6. So it's okay. They may have overpaid a little bit, but they had the money. They had the picks to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, the way this trade works out for Arizona, they essentially got the 2024 first to move down 3 spots. So that's playing the draft game there. A lot of fun. They didn't give up a future first to go up and get him. So good for them. Obviously 33 in this draft is still a good pick, but will be interesting. Now we're on the clock with the Raiders. Is this Tyree Wilson? Is this Christian Gonzalez? Is this Jalen Carter? Dark horse here. Is this Will Levis?
This could maybe dark horse is Will Levis. Do you get your quarterback of the future? Jimmy G is what, 32, 33 years old?
Yep, limited, always injured as well. Maybe this is Will Levis. Now, Will Levis is a little bit older for a prospect, but played through injury this last season. Seems like a grade A guy. Does put mayonnaise in his coffee. I don't know how I feel about that, but
that's just weird.
Doesn't matter. Who cares? As long as he's not out there committing felonies or whatever, then
weird,
God bless him.
I like a little weird. Now, my question is, I mean, Josh McDaniels, used a first-round pick on Tim Tebow, as moronic as that was. Is he arrogant enough to think that I don't need to use a high pick on a quarterback? I can coach him up. I can turn whoever I want to. My system is good enough that they might not go with what I don't know is the defense. I better stack up on defensive players, or I don't even know if he's that self-aware, Nick. Not a big fan of Josh McDaniels, let's be honest.
No, yeah, he's Kind of a weirdo also, but not in a good way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do here. They are so devoid of talent. I mean, we are going through their secondary, their cornerbacks this morning. We're going through the defensive line. Their right guard and right tackle are also absolutely horrific. And then they don't have a quarterback long-term. Really kind of a curious team. Their process last offseason, paying big money for Chandler Jones, trading draft picks for Devontae Adams, and then letting Derek Carr go for nothing, right? So not a very good process to get where they are right now. Maybe that quarterback can help reset it, but my gut tells me Christian Gonzalez here, but we will see.
Tyree Wilson, I think, would kind of look good in the silver and black too.
Opposite Max Crosby. I mean,
Texas Tech, Red Raiders, Raider to Raider. Maybe that's just the connection I'm making, but it might make sense to do for Tyree Wilson here as well. Historically, what makes sense for them is a kid with character concerns would be Jalen Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Henry Ruggs wound a little too fresh that they don't necessarily want to go that direction? I think we'll find out here pretty quickly. But, I just, like I said, I don't think that the Raiders would be a good place for Jalen Carter, and I hope that doesn't happen for his sake. Even though, I don't have anything against the Raiders. It's just him in Vegas just sounds like a bad idea to me. Again, you're looking for a place that would have an infrastructure and a mentor. And Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas just does not strike me as those things. Will Levis still sitting there. I think his forehead's going to get a little shiny too by the end of the night. Unless he goes right here, and then he just might start the waterworks. So I think Will Levis makes sense here. I really do. And Christian Gonzalez and Tyree Wilson. So one of those three, I'm going to say Will Levis.
You're going to say Will Levis. We haven't also talked about Skoronski here. I mean, the Raiders' offensive line outside of Colton Miller has been absolutely god-awful. Maybe now that Paris Johnson has come off the board, maybe you see somebody start to, the run on offensive lineman happen here. Offensive line has kind of had across the board, I think, had a little bit of a tick up over the last 2 seasons as well. So I think it could be Skoronski here, but we'll see. I think any of those picks make sense. I don't know if there'd be any other shocking ones, although the Raiders have been known to make some pretty darn shocking picks here. So maybe it's something shocking like a Miles Murphy. Maybe they overdraft a Clemson defensive end again, something like that.
Osiris Torrance.
That would be shocking as well. Yeah. I mean, you know what you're looking for in that kind of guy. That would be an interesting pick. Absolutely mountain of a man, but probably a little bit high. If they wanted him, they'd need to trade back here. And I'm curious how Minnesota Vikings, Tennessee Titans, who's on the phone right now? Who's trying to move up? Apparently,
I think that's why it's one of the reasons it's taken so long.
Yeah,
you're working on it because you've got a pretty good idea at this point who it's going to be based on who has already gone. So they're on the phone trying to get the best deal until they finally say we're not doing it.
Yeah, will be interesting. And again, Jalen Carter's still there. Would be curious to see if maybe Philly trades up with Atlanta here. I was a little bit worried when we said we're doing the top 10 for this. What if Atlanta trades back to like 11? Like, oh, sorry. It was right.
Well, I'll let you go. Then I'll hang out with all of our friends here and appreciate everybody being here. We've got a good group. A lot of people here watching. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you do. And we certainly appreciate you spending your time with us for the top 10, because I know there are so many different venues for you to be watching this and getting your information that we're truly humbled that you would choose to be here with us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll be great. And Scott, I'm sorry. The Raiders select Tyree Wilson here. Tyree Wilson going.
Yeah, that makes. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Tony Wright coming with some stars. Thank you, sir. Getting us started with the stars on there. Again, a reminder that super chats on YouTube and Facebook stars are the most direct way that you can help support the show, just like Tony did. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Tyree Wilson, Raiders to Raiders. Oh, I like the way he looks walking up. That's a confident man. He looks like somebody ready to get up to quarterback. Yeah. Tyree Wilson has just been selected with the number 7 overall pick by the Las Vegas Raiders. Nick, what is your gut reaction?
I mean, what an absolute unit out there. One of the biggest players in the entire draft class. If this class had a first guy off the bus, it would probably be Tyree Wilson. Alien wingspan, super physical, not great get off, but because of the length and the size that he plays with, it doesn't really matter. You're just kind of more of an overpowering type of edge rusher versus that quick speed and bend. Super unique overall skill set. We'll be curious to see if he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can continue. Well, I guess not hopefully. I'm cheering against him now because he's a Raider. But work on that get off. But
You
unique
want him to
player.
be healthy regardless.
Yeah, not pulling against him, but a very, very unique player and somebody that, man, Max Crosby, I think, played 96% of the snaps last season at edge for the Raiders, and he was like number one in terms of edge rusher snap percentage by like a lot. So this is going to help them a good bit. Very fun player. Some inside-outside ability, too. I'm curious to see if we see some 4-eye on him as well with that 6'5", 275-pound frame.
When you started talking about, he's got a little bit of a slower get off, one of my thoughts was a coach getting in his face when he is in high school or younger saying, Tyree, you can beat everybody in front of you. Stop jumping off sides. You are getting off the ball so quickly and you don't need to because you can whip everybody's ass that they put in front of you. Stop jumping off sides because he's fast. He's explosive. He's quick. I think it's been told to him, stop jumping off sides. And that, that doesn't concern me so much. What I'm interested in, you watch the guy move. I mean, what a great compliment for the Raiders out there on that defensive line. The ability that he has, there was some talk of him going number 2 overall. I could see it. As far as upside goes, I think he's got the best, I think he's the best edge prospect, if not the best player at this point. Now, the Falcons are on the clock. My friend just texted me. He said, who do you think they're going to take? And I said, Bijan Robinson, because that's probably the pick at this point that I would least like them to make. Right now, I would probably go Christian Gonzalez at corner I think he's a safer pick. But I would definitely go Jalen Carter before I would go Bijan Robinson. If I was set on Bijan Robinson, I'd be on the phone to trade back for whatever I could get. I would move backwards some.
It could even be as simple as trading back to 10 with Philly. Coming up, 2 spots there. Maybe Christian Gonzalez is still there. Then kept hearing that Philly was really interested in moving up for Jalen Carter. Now
I'd be on the phone with Tennessee.
Yep.
New England has talked about quarterback. Coming up and getting a guy who needs an offensive lineman. But I would want to move back if I wanted Bijan Robinson. The pick is already in. That didn't take very long. Again, I can justify it. Basically, any pick that they can make right here, I can justify how this is going to help their team. I couldn't do that the last 2 years. The team was too bad. Now you could say that, it might help the team, but don't tell me that Kyle Pitts is a win now move. Your lines of scrimmage are a shambles. It's not going to help you win now. But drafting a 20-year-old like him, Drake London. Last year, your offensive line was still a shambles, but it wasn't. It improved a ton. Your defensive line, Taquan Graham comes out of nowhere. So your defensive lines were a lot better than I was expecting. So Drake London, in hindsight, was a pretty damn good pick. My pick at the time was Kyle Hamilton, and I would have been okay either way. I didn't miss there either. With him, he ended up the number 1 rated safety by PFF last year. But I would probably I'd go Christian Gonzalez or Jalen Carter right here is what I would do. I'm not taking a running back at number 8 when I have an elite running game already.
I think it's going to be Bijan here. It seems like there's been some momentum there the last 2 weeks, and there seems to be some smoke there right this very second. What would Bijan do for this offense? Oh my gosh, we're in the sun. He just blasted that offense into the sun there for the Atlanta Falcons. As I try to fix my camera, we'll do it live. But yeah, Bijan would be a very unique pick here. Kind of, you're pretty much saying the 5th round option is out the window there, but you have a chance to get the best player in the entire draft with Bijan. I think could be an incredible player, all around skill set, all around game. And with how Arthur Smith schemes up the run game, could be a very unique player. Now, is he going to,
dude, your camera's killing me.
I know, right? I need to fix that, but I think it's going to be Bijan here.
I do too. The last 2 years where there has been smoke, there has been fire. For as quiet as the Atlanta Falcons are, there's a leak in there somewhere because the national pundits pegged Kyle Pitts. The national pundits pegged Drake London. And the national pundits are all saying right now, Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan's an incredible player. Also sounds like an incredible dude as well, which I do like for the Falcons. And this is a no excuse. If it is Bijan here, this is a no excuse selection for Desmond Ridder. It's going to be a very unique situation here for them. So, yeah, he would be a very interesting one. Joe Cannon's saying it's Gonzalez. God, I hope it is Gonzalez, because that's what I would make the pick here being. But we will see. So
It's
who
like
knows?
I said, it's a very polarizing player. If you go and look on my YouTube channels or Facebook, there's some people that will go to the grave saying it's got to be Bijan Robinson and you're a moron for thinking anything else. And there's some people that are saying you're an absolute moron and deserve to be fired if you take a running back top 10.
Yeah, it would be interesting. The Eagles traded up one spot and are on the clock now, which makes me think the Eagles traded with the Bears because they only moved up one spot. But Falcons pick, coming in right now. We will see who it is officially here in just a moment.
And again, it goes back to why won't they trade down? It's 3 years in a row where there's been trade downs. I don't know. I don't get it. That's the biggest question I had was when people have asked, what do you think of Terry Fontenot? I wanted to know what he was offered for that number 4 pick, because they were in a position where they needed a bunch of players. They needed a bunch of good players and not just a pass-catching tight end. So that one was a little strange to me. Can't read Roger Goodell's lips as it's coming in. The Atlanta Falcons. I can't read his lips, and they haven't said it.
Will Levis. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
They brought Will Levis in on an official visit, as one of those visits. The Falcons selection.
This kid looks
Drum
so
roll,
nervous.
please. Oh, he was introducing the person who's going to make the introduction of the Falcons pick. I still say it's going to be Bijan Robinson. Somebody already knows. Walter Beach.
Yeah,
there's so many people in here coming. I can't tell if they're telling me who it's going to be or if they're.
It's Bijan.
It's got to. I mean, I've said Bijan. It just, like I said, that's the one that of the ones we've heard, that's the one I probably wanted the least. So therefore, it's got to be Bijan Robinson. Yeah, running back Bijan Robinson, Texas. So the Atlanta Falcons follow their mold and take who they feel is the subjective. Give Arthur Smith credit for using the word subjective. Best player, best prospect available, and they select Texas running back Bijan Robinson. Nick, what is your gut reaction?
I mean, you are leaning in, you are zigging when the rest of the league is zagging, and you are building a bunch of physical, height, weight, speed, yak after the catch, after the carry monsters for that team. The Atlanta Falcons are going to continue just to beat the absolute crap out of teams that want to live with their 220-pound space linebackers, or their 280-pound defensive linemen, or their nickel cornerbacks who don't want to come tackle. And Bijan is somebody who is a leaning into the identity here. We saw what Arthur Smith did with Derrick Henry for a number of years, and now you get a Bijan Robinson who is a very unique player. And this is a Falcons team. With you make this pick with Bijan, the expectations this year need to be playoffs. If you don't make the playoffs with making this kind of pick with a top 10 pick, I think it's a failure, and you have to question the guys who are making these decisions. So Bijan, incredible player. Some of the vision that he has, the start and stop ability at the size, the ability to make guys miss, to stay square, to stay balanced, is unbelievable. He's also extremely good out of the backfield. I don't think he's Jahmyr Gibbs level of a route runner in space, but you can flex him out to the slot. You can play some positionless football with him. You can, line up with him and Cordell Patterson in the backfield. Who's going to flex out? Neither of them flex out. Both flex out. You're going to have a lot of fun with him, and also a very good, unique player as well. So he's Bijan Robinson, an incredible talent. This is a identity pick for the Falcons here, and somebody who you're going to be able to line up and play against single high safeties every single week, because teams are not going to dare play light boxes and 2 high safety shells.
The Atlanta Falcons poured a ton of resources this offseason into their defense. The one place that, you could say they've addressed the cornerback position with Jeffrey Okudah. The one place where they still have not really addressed is the edge position. Yeah, Bud Dupree, but Bud Dupree might not be a huge upgrade over Lorenzo Carter. The 2 top edges are gone. Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson. I would have gone in that direction. And I, like I said, I probably would have gone Jalen Carter here, but question marks there. He still hasn't been picked, and he's on the board at 9 now. Christian Gonzalez made a lot of sense for me here too. Bijan Robinson is a win now pick. You just said that. The shelf life on a running back is maybe 3 or 4 years. If you're lucky, they can go longer than that. They're going all in on Desmond Ridder at quarterback, which is okay. You've put enough resources onto the defensive side with Jesse Bates, with Jeffrey Okudah, David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, Bud Dupree. I mean, I'm at 5 or 6 here, and I'm not finished. I didn't get all of them yet. Mike Hughes. They needed more playmakers on offense. The wide receiver wasn't there this year. I think if this was a year where another Drake London was available or a top wide receiver, they may have gone wide receiver at 8. Wide receiver wasn't necessarily there. The offensive line, other than left guard, is in pretty good shape. You feel good with Desmond Ridder. This is going to be an exciting pick. That's for sure. For us, wannabe general managers who look long-term, because we'll be here in 20 years. Bijan won't
Hopefully.
be. Arthur Smith won't be.
Yeah.
We think long-term sometimes. This might not be the best long-term pick for the Atlanta Falcons, but this could very easily be the best right now pick for the Atlanta Falcons.
And you know who is over the moon right now? Your dynasty fantasy football players out there. Bijan Robinson, put him in Sharpie, tattoo it in your arm, first overall, because going to a team with Arthur Smith where he is going to build the entire offense around Bijan Robinson as your guy is going to be an incredible selection and a player for them on the immediacy. Now, luckily for the Falcons too, Scott, we talked about it. Interior offensive line, guard and center, cornerback position, edge rusher. You know what's pretty good day 2 in this draft class? Not a great draft class, but what you have there, depth at cornerback, depth at edge rusher, depth at interior offensive line, tight end as well. So you have a chance to continue to build this out here. You go
running
with
back.
Running back is deep. I don't know if it's deep day 2 though. It's like deep day 3. It's different. There's like a lot of good secondary options. And if you believe that Bijan can be special here, which he definitely can, then that's interesting. It's going to be interesting to follow the career arc going forward of Bijan versus a Jalen Carter versus a Christian Gonzalez. But there's no doubt the Falcons got better, and they doubled down on this identity that is a team that is, we are building it through the running game, and the running back and Arthur Smith has done a pretty damn good job with that the last few years. Yeah.
Last year you saw it at some point in every single game. I said, he hit the F it button. We're just going to run it down their damn throats. And they could.
Yeah.
They could last year. Now, Cordell Patterson can be an X factor. We talk about the wide receiver. You can play Cordell Patterson all over the place. Okay. If you've got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London, you got Cordell Patterson. Okay, I can live with that. And now I've got Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier coming out of the backfield. That's pretty good. Jonnu Smith is a number 2 tight end. The offense and defense now on paper, they look like playoff contenders if Desmond Ridder can hold up his end of the bargain. That's the big question that the national media has right now, is they don't care what the Atlanta Falcons have done. Their pre-free agency power rankings were like 27. Their post-free agency power rankings were like 28 because they didn't get Lamar Jackson. That's insane. That's insanity.
Yeah.
So now we talk about the Baltimore Ravens going out and getting those kind of players. Well, guess who else has been stacking up some freaks on both sides of the ball? The Philadelphia Eagles. And everybody here is saying Jalen Carter, Eagles in here. And they're saying it as soon as the trade happened. Yeah, I agree. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter on the Eagles defensive line. Look out. Come on, man. That's not fair.
And don't forget Nakobe Dean. Also there, the leader of that defense 2 years ago, the emotional and intelligent leader of that defense back in 2022 for that Georgia Bulldogs. So the Eagles arguably get the best player in the draft class. This is why I'd always be hesitant of trading first-round picks for non-quarterbacks, because you don't know where that first-round pick is going to end up the next year. Eagles in the Super Bowl last season and in the draft, arguably getting the most talented player at a premium position at 9 overall, thanks to that Chris Olave trade with the New Orleans Saints. So really unique player here. Reminds me a lot of Chris Jones, height, weight, speed, length player. Obviously, you can't talk about him without talking about the reports about some of the work ethic, the day-to-day stuff there, and then getting in trouble with the speeding incident that did result in a fatality. He wasn't directly the one driving or anything, but a drag racing incident where horrible stuff happened. So Jalen Carter will be interesting. obviously, and it's not just we talked about here with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not just those Georgia guys on the defensive line, but you still got Fletcher Cox there. You still got Brandon Graham there. So this is a team, obviously, some turnover on the defensive side of the ball from the coaching staff and losing a Javon Hargrave last year. But Carter's got some guys here that can hopefully keep him in line and keep him focused. Unbelievably talented player, and will be, God, the rich just get richer, right? That's what this is. The rich get richer.
Yeah, they lost. They didn't bring everybody back, did they? But to be able to reload with, they got Jordan Davis last year, right?
They drafted Jordan Davis.
Yeah, yep. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. There's a reason why Georgia went back to back, and it was these guys in the trenches. And Jalen Carter, I hypothesize that he may have been a little bored with the college game last year. He made an impact when he needed to, and they won all of their games. Well, he didn't play hard every down. He played hard enough. I think this is a fantastic pick. I don't like the phrase, I'm not going to lie. Well, thanks. Thanks for not lying to me. But I think this is a fantastic pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, because they can put the infrastructure around him and he can be the best player in this draft. Interior linemen with his skill set and his ability are rare. They are super rare. And he's the best interior line prospect I've seen in 3 years by far.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. What was the incredible draft with Ed Oliver, and he's the best one since Quinnen Williams coming out, right? That's probably the bar there.
That may have been 4. This is
4 drafts ago.
This is 3 that I've been covering it again, so that was probably 4.
Yeah, I agree with you. An incredible player. Just ragdolls guys. Just the length that he plays with and the power. Can you get more out of him? Now, granted, defense, and especially the Eagles. Oh, he doesn't bring it all every play. Eagles are all about that first and second wave of the defensive line. They want to be able to start 2 waves of guys out there that are good as anybody else. So this is an excellent pick for them. Going to be a lot of fun to watch him there in Philly next to Jordan Davis. And if Howie Roseman continues to, this is now his 15th draft in a row where he's only drafted 4 positions. Yep. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, and defensive line. And guess what? The philosophy works. Sorry about the Falcons taking running back right there, but stacking the premium.
Don't forget a tight end.
When did they take a first-round tight end?
Kyle Pitts. I'm talking about.
Oh, I was talking about the Eagles.
I know, but we say F them picks. The Atlanta Falcons say F that positional value. We don't care.
Yep.
We'll go safety. And the thing is, though, is I probably would have gone safety last year at the number 8 pick, because I thought he was the best player available, and all the other stuff, local Atlanta kid, leader, face of the franchise, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Jalen Carter is a fantastic pick. The final pick in the top 10, and the last one that we're going to do tonight before we get out of here, is the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears moved down 1 spot. I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, that they did that, considering Jalen Carter was still on the board, knowing that they wanted to go big defensive lineman. We do the Bears pod on this channel. Parker Hurley does it, and he was saying Draymond Jones was going to be one of their top targets because they needed interior defensive line help, or at least 3-4, a big defensive line, and they trade out of a spot to not get Jalen Carter. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, Nick.
Bears team reloading, and I think they wanted the guy they were targeting was not Jalen Carter here, I would assume, because they knew who the Eagles would come up and get. So they're still going to get the guy they would have got at 9 anyway that they wanted. And just with a slight trade back, and this has got to be an offensive lineman. I see that Michael Ronquillo saying Darnell Wright would make a lot of sense there. One of my favorite players in the 2022 class. They took in the 5th round last season in Braxton Jones from Southern Utah, and he ended up being pretty darn good for them at left tackle. Pretty surprising player for them. And maybe they need a right tackle. Maybe it will be Darnell Wright here. He has the length. He's a butt kicker. I mean, talk about building around Justin Fields, getting him DJ Moore, getting him a right tackle who can just blow open holes in the run game. Tevin Jenkins at left guard as well. I mean, you talk about no excuses for Desmond Ridder. Well, Justin Fields, step on up, buddy, because this is no excuses for you at this point.
You know who else is happy right now? The Tennessee Titans. They're pretty happy right now. They didn't have to move up if we want a quarterback. Will Levis is still there. But the Chicago Bears are a team that, much like the Atlanta Falcons, they had a ton of money. You don't do that without being really bad and losing and shedding a bunch of salary cap. And, for them to come in now they're going to build through the draft. And, everybody's saying Darnell Wright.
Yep.
Tennessee will wait until it gets announced here for well. And then we're going to head out and then we're going to close this down and we'll be back tomorrow morning. But the Bears are in. Like I said, I'm a few seconds behind, but it does surprise me just a little bit that they didn't take Jalen Carter. It does surprise me.
And shout out to Kathy. I think Kathy was a giant Darnell Wright fan. I didn't love him in the top 10 from the tape that I saw. I thought he was a little bit not that dancing, like not as fluid as I thought. Also didn't love him jumping in people's DMs and using curse words at them, like from some podunk, 14-year-old on Twitter. And then
let me ask you this here real quick, Nick. The Chicago Bears just traded back and took at number 10. They took Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright. Give me your gut reaction.
They're investing in one of the best run blocking players in this unit with some positional versatility. Could be a really good guard and just a mauler. I mean, somebody that you're going to be able to blast open run lanes with him out there. Unique player, and continue to invest in the offensive line and the run game around Justin Fields. And
again, my gut reaction on this one was just a little bit of surprise of the trade. I thought, listening to Parker Hurley on the Bears pod that, they really wanted to go defensive line and had the chance to do it. And to trade out of that spot and not take Jalen Carter, it makes me wonder if they felt a little more hesitant about it, or they just thought, hey, we need to get some more help for our franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Yep, I think it's all about the franchise quarterback here for them. So there's the 10th pick. There it is. Ryan Adonis in here saying, what did I say? Well, Ryan, you were banging the drum for Bijan for a month now, and that's the pick. So it's going to be a fun one.
The thing is, Ryan, nobody in here was saying it wouldn't happen. We were just saying we didn't necessarily want it to happen at number 8. I never said it wouldn't. I've said all day it's going to be Bijan Robinson. I got the text message to prove it. Someone asked me right before, who are they going to pick? I said, they'll pick Bijan Robinson because that's the guy I probably least want at number 8. But you can go through the gut reaction immediately after. I got nothing but good things to say about Bijan Robinson. It's a win now move, and it's going to be an exciting move. It really will. It'll take some of the pressure off Kyle Pitts. It'll take the pressure off Drake London. It'll absolutely take the pressure off of Desmond Ridder. That it makes sense to me. I just really would have liked to have seen them be able to come back and pick up a couple more picks and get him at 13 or 14 a little bit later in the draft.
Yeah. Also kind of funny, not to poke at you, Scott, but all the Thomas Dimitroff, building a team that's for fantasy football. And then you have the last 3 first round draft picks for the Falcons, a pass catcher, and a running back.
Yeah, but they poured so much money onto the defensive side of free agency that I think the roster balance was so much better than what you saw with Thomas Dimitroff, who put all of his resources into skill position players on offense.
Yeah, I just wanted to tease you a little bit about that.
I got no problem with that. I think the roster is pretty well balanced for the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at what they've done on defense, and I'm a little surprised that Christian Gonzalez is still falling here. I might have taken him at 8, but I also may have gambled that I could trade back and gotten him later, or Bijan Robinson still, and been okay and gotten another second round pick. I would love to have had another pick in the 40s, somewhere between 35 and 45, and been able to get those guys and get those picks in there somewhere. Gary Palmer coming in and closing us out. He says, thanks, guys. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for coming to the super chat. Want to say to our super chat superstars, we had Gary, we had Michael Ranquillo kicking us off. We had another super chat that came in from Paul, I believe it was.
Oh yeah, $20.
Yeah, Paul came in orange, Gary came in yellow, and then Tony Wright with the Facebook stars. So on that note, we are going to get out of here for tonight, but we will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for a first round reaction show. So come back and join us. We'll sleep on this a little bit and we'll have an analysis. You got our gut reaction while we were live doing this thing. So we'll come back tomorrow morning. If you want to keep the conversation going, head over onto Mile High Huddle on YouTube. But until tomorrow morning at 9, some more Falcons talk, some more overall draft talk. We will be back on all these channels tomorrow at 9 a.m. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here with us tonight. We know you had your choice of venues where you could go and have a conversation and listen. And it's flattering that you decided to spend the night with us. So thank you so much. Until tomorrow morning, we will see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Peace.